Marie Antoinette, born Austrian Archduchess in the House of Habsburg-Lorraine and the 15th child of her mother Empress Maria Theresa and the Holy Roman Emperor Francis I, on the 2nd of November 1755. Maria Antonia Josephina Joanna lived a happy, carefree childhood in the Austrian court. She learnt French, German, Italian and history from her tutors, although she preferred to immerse herself in music, dance and games, which took time away from her education. Her parents raised her and her 16 brothers and sisters to become suitable matches with foreign courts, to help strengthen alliances and mend feuds. In 1765, Francis I died from a stroke, leaving his wife and their eldest son and heir, Emperor Joseph II, to rule the Austrian Empire. Marriage arrangements between Maria Antonia's sisters and various courts were beginning to emerge. These marriages would cement the alliances that Maria Theresa had entered into during the 7 Years' War, including Russia, Naples, Parma, and Austria's traditional enemy, France. After an outbreak of smallpox in the Austrian court, causing the death of 3 of Maria Theresa's children, it was left up to 12-year-old Maria Antonia to marry into the French court. After 2 years of negotiations and planning between the two courts, a date was set for the 16th of May 1770 for the marriage of 14-year-old Maria Antonia and 15-year-old Louis Auguste, the Dauphin of France. As she was to become the Dauphine of France, she was to leave everything behind belonging to the foreign court of Austria. Leaving everything that belonged to Austria included her name. The court of France changed her name to Marie Antoinette, the Dauphine of France. Huge wedding celebrations were held in the honour of the new Dauphin and Dauphine of France. Marie Antoinette's fair skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, and obvious beauty caused the awkward, shy Louis Auguste to hide away behind his title, which began the difficulties in their early relationship. Marie Antoinette was not so popular at the court of Versailles, where people looked down their noses at the Austrian bride. A woman named Madame du Barry, who was King Louis XV's mistress, despised the new Dauphine. Although, as she had considerable political influence over the king, Marie Antoinette was advised by her mother to speak to her and to stay in good favour. Due to the lack of attention from her husband, who would have rather gone hunting, and the constant disapproval from her mother, Marie Antoinette spent her time and money on fashion and gambling. In April 1774, the aging king became sick, and on the 10th of May 1774, King Louis XV passed away from smallpox, aged 64. The young, recently married couple were now King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette of France. Versailles lit up with celebration for their new king and queen. King Louis XVI was crowned on the 11th of June 1775. The next step for the young couple was the consummation of their marriage, and until an heir was born, the fate of France's security was uncertain. The couple's unpopularity in both court and in Paris caused Louis's shy, awkward personality to be mocked in pamphlets which centred on his impotence and Marie Antoinette looking for other men. This crisis was made worse when the king's brother's wife gave birth to a son and Marie Antoinette became a mockery. Marie Antoinette felt uncomfortable with the tight constraints and the constant snickering at Versailles, so she spent most of her time at a small chateau called the Petit Trianon, which she delighted herself in renovating with gardens blooming with flowers. She had created a simple life for herself, where she invited her friends to enjoy a peasant sanctuary away from the rules of court. Although life for the peasants of Paris, whom Marie Antoinette had fashioned her little palace on, was very different. Prices for grain and bread were rising dramatically for the peasants, and starvation was rampant. While nobility and the clergy got richer, the rest of France was falling into social and economic decline. After a long time waiting and constant checkups from Versailles doctors, Marie Antoinette fell pregnant. Their first child was born on the 19th of December 1778. She was named Marie Therese Charlotte de France. On the 22nd of October 1781, their second child was born. Their first son and the heir to the throne was named Louis-Joseph Xavier Francois of France. The third child was another male called Louis Charles de France, born on the 27th of March 1785. Their final child was a baby girl born on the 9th of July 1786, called Marie Sophie Helene Beatrice de Bourbon. She died not 1 year later on the 19th of June 1787 from convulsions. Louis Joseph, the King and Queen's first son, died on the 4th of June 1789, and the title of Dauphin passed on to his younger brother. A new power was rising, and on the 20th of June 1789, an oath was signed by the National Assembly declaring themselves the Assembly of the People, not the Estates. This oath is known as the Tennis Court Oath. On the 14th of July 1789, huge mobs stormed the King's Bastille, which symbolised royal power, and they stole large amounts of ammunition. This was the start of the People's Revolt against the French monarchy, which is now called the French Revolution. The hatred was provoked when papers reported of this supposed quote from Queen Marie Antoinette, "Let them eat cake," in reference to the starving peasants in Paris. On the 5th of October 1789, crowds of women marched from Paris to Versailles with spikes in hand, demanding bread. They stormed Versailles, killing several guards. When they did reach the rooms of the royal family, they found that they had escaped. On the 6th, the King and Marie Antoinette moved into the protection of the National Guard, giving strength to the People's Assembly. In 1791, the French Constitution was written under three main ideas: liberty, equality, and fraternity, giving birth to the tricolor, the symbol of the revolutionaries. The Austrian court was horrified by the creation of the constitution, which tore away the king's power, so they planned an escape route into Austria for the royal family. On the 20th of June 1791, they escaped the palace, Tuileries, under the cover of night, although they were caught in the town of Varennes by a peasant who recognized the king. They were brought back to Paris and security was increased. After a mob stormed the palace and forced the king to wear a bonnet rouge to show his loyalty to the revolution, the royal family was moved to the tower in the temple at Marais under harsh conditions. On the 21st of September, the downfall of the French monarch was officially declared by the People's Assembly. Louis was separated from his wife and children and tried for undermining the First French Republic. On the 21st of January 1793, Louis was quietly taken from his cell and led through the streets of Paris to Place de la Révolution and executed by the guillotine, which was fast becoming a symbol of the revolt. The king's last words were drowned out by the drums. Marie Antoinette became known as Widow Capet. She plunged into deep depression, refusing to eat. She was separated from her children, which caused the once glamorous, cheerful, and happy queen to fall into silence and despair. Her health rapidly deteriorated after she contracted tuberculosis. Her trial began on the 14th of October 1793. She was tried for high treason against the People's Assembly, and she was charged for sexually abusing her son, as the young boy was bribed in order to accuse his mother of anything that would ensure her downfall. This charge was dropped after Marie Antoinette pleaded to the women of Paris. She said at her trial, "If I have not replied, it is because nature itself refuses to respond to such a charge laid against a mother." On the 16th of October 1793, Marie Antoinette was taken from her prison dressed in simple white peasant clothes, hair cut short and hands tied behind her back. She was brought through the streets of Paris on an open cart to Place de la Révolution. With a brave face and a heart of courage, she walked the scaffold and was guillotined. Her head was held by the executioner Henry Sanson to the crowd, and they cheered, "Long live the Republic." Marie Therese looked after her brother until he died in 1795 from tuberculosis. She moved to Austria, her mother's homeland, and married. She died in 1851. Marie Antoinette, a symbol of French fashion, class, and the monarch's reign, an icon of the French Revolution, the last Queen of France.